Hi, everybody. It is another edition of TeaTime. And this is my friend Michal. And we're just going to talk today about religion, faith, spirituality, and like whatever else comes up for us. So hopefully y'all enjoy that. So we can start. Maybe like, what is your background?
Okay, so my parents are Baptist. Their parents were Baptist. I don't know about my mom's parents, honestly, but I know my grandmother on my dad's side. She like really got into Christianity in like the middle of her life, and then it became really strong for her. My dad like brought us to church and stuff when we were younger, but then as life went on, we didn't really go there as much. But it's still like Christianity was a really big part of our lives. So
yeah. I think mine was a more non-denominational experience. It was probably closest to Baptist, where it was still like that fire and brimstone type situation.
Mm-hmm.
We went to church until like life happened, and then we didn't go as much. And then it was really more of my own individual. I think it became when I was in high school. My spiritual life became, you know how you kind of grow up and your spiritual life becomes your own, but it was your parents and they like held on to it really tight for you. Like that happened for me very young, where if I really wanted to have a relationship and a close relationship to Jesus, I kind of had to hold on to that myself. Like my parents still prayed and all that other stuff, and they just have their own individual relationships with God that were not all particularly entranced in each other's. But yeah, so that was my experience with it. So what are some of the what are your qualms with with religion and the church and like whatever?
It's just how like strict they are about things. Like if when I was younger, I used to read Percy Jackson. This is going to sound like really off topic.
No,
right?
Do it.
And so, but I read Percy Jackson, and I was like, wow, the big three, Zeus and Poseidon and Hades, wow, they feel like so real. And I was like, so I was like thinking, and I was like, what if they were? But what if it was like God made them real for us? Like, because I was still Christian. It's not like I was like, I hate God. It was just they felt real, so they had to be. And it was like, there's nothing, why would it feel fake if they're not, like, and so I was talking to my dad, and I was like, we've been reading like a lot of mythology, like Greek mythology. And he was like, you still reading the Bible? I was like, what? No, I never started. But I was like, there's no way, like I was like, what if like God made these like gods? It was like, no, that's not what it says in the Bible. If you started reading it, you would know that. And I'm like, but they feel real. Like what if it doesn't have to be real to me, but they were obviously real to some people for them to feel like this. Like it can't just be some like idea. Like how did they get that idea?
Right.
Like people were just like, thunder, that looked like Zeus. That's not what happened. Like somebody had to give them the idea. So I was just like, it must be, but like that idea was shut down so fast. Like it wasn't even a thought.
Right.
Just, I don't like that, and that it really like keeps you away from like wanting to be, because like I don't tell people I'm Christian when I first meet them. Like like when religion comes up, I kind of like try to stay out of the topic until someone's like, so what are you, like, what do you believe? And then that's when I'm like, well,
you take that deep breath and you gear up and you're like, okay,
let me explain before you hate me.
That's crazy. No, I feel you. It does happen. It happens in the home because, like I said, I did grow up in a church that was like a little bit. It was strict, but it's in conversations. Like I love my dad, but conversations with my dad where I'll be like, okay, well, I'm gonna get like a piercing or a tattoo. It's like, don't mark your body, like da 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 da. And it's like, okay, wait a second. But then you watch a sermon. I've watched a sermon, and it was a pastor, and they were like, the actual context of that scripture is about like not marking dead bodies. And there's so many of those things. The part of the Bible where they're talking about like you should forgive your neighbor's debt. every like 7th year, and some
Mhm.
which nobody's kept that principle. Like, y'all want to ban abortions, which Jesus didn't talk about, but y'all want to hold on to these debts. It's giving hypocrite. Anyway, but like there's all this stuff that you just don't have the context for, because people treat the Bible like it's ahistorical, like it just
Yeah.
stands outside of time.
You can just
And
pick
it's
something.
right, like God
Yeah.
said the word lives forever, but not this book. Like that's
Yeah.
not, those aren't the same, because when God said it, the book didn't exist. So that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense,
Yeah.
y'all. You know, so I think that happened for me. And what also happened for me was just we were sold a Jesus that just is so I don't like him. I don't like him. He's intense and white and like
Yeah.
and just rude and doing all this stuff. And it's just, when you look at the like text, it's really not even like that. You know, like, yes, Jesus has savage moments. We all do, but they treat us like our God, like our anger is not godlike.
Yeah.
It's like, where did you get that? Obviously, there's a such thing as righteous anger, because Jesus exhibited that. If God can burn down cities, I certainly can say at least one cuss word.
Like, it's not like I'm committing arson against New York City or something. Not like burn down New Orleans. Like, I'm not doing that.
Exactly. And I think that's wild. And I think it's wild too, the ways that we don't notice how, one, Christianity is not just this like naturally progressed thing. People made decisions about what these things were going to be. Mm-hmm. People made decisions about like whether or not Jesus should be considered all human or all divine, because there was arguments like, well, humanity is like evil and the flesh is evil, so why would God wrap himself in evil? He couldn't have done it. Well, if you feel that way, then maybe your definition of the flesh and humanity isn't right. Like, maybe we're not naturally like evil, right, in the flesh, you know. And so then that means that the desires that you're denigrating may not be, you know. Yeah. But I do think too, when you're talking about like things that get shut down and make you feel really far away from things, I read somewhere, watched somewhere, that sin is what takes you away from God, and what like puts distance there. So for me, shame is a greater sin, and inflicting shame upon somebody is a greater sin than pretty much anything else, because nothing makes you right. Like it was shame that made Adam and Eve hide and put on clothes, right, and like all this other stuff from God. Like, I wonder if the story would have been different if the shame wasn't present and they just had come forward and said, hey, we messed up.
What if it wasn't actually eating the fruit, but it was the lie that came afterwards?
Yeah.
Like, that, like, he would have forgave you if you ate the fruit, but he didn't forgive that you lied to him about it.
Yeah, especially, like, and now you eating from the fruit of, like, knowledge and truth and stuff. You know better. Like, you know better. Yeah. So do better. And, like, we don't know. And that's my thing. Is it bothers me that there is a reluctance and a refusal to admit that nobody knows. Right. Faith isn't certainty. Because if it was certain, it wouldn't be faith. Right? So it's insane that you can look, you know, if somebody
people dead in the eyes and
dead in the eye and be like,
you're not going to heaven.
Yeah. What?
Who are you? I didn't know I was speaking to the Messiah. Like, it's terrible.
Right. Or that's bad. God doesn't want that.
Like, you spoke to him?
God was whispering to you about me? Like, he didn't tell me.
I don't even know you. Like, why would
don't even know you? I'm like, certainly not. Certainly God doesn't want us to keep rape babies if we don't want to keep rape babies. Certainly not. Now, that is not to say that every baby from rape should not be kept. Because if you have that emotional, like, bandwidth to deal with that, and that's your choice, that's the thing. It's like, point. God gave us free will. God never made anybody choose to be saved. And that is one of the most important things to God in this world, is for you to feel that you have been saved and that he is your home now. So if God wouldn't force you to do that, why would he force you to have a baby?
Exactly. And people are trying to force others to know God too.
Right.
And it's like, you can't force someone to know someone.
Exactly. and to know your God.
Yeah.
You want them to know your God. And that's not really what it's all about. It's about finding your own path and making your own relationship, right? Like that's what was special about Christianity to begin with, is that there were other religions. Like religion wasn't born with Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
It didn't start there
at all. There were other ones, but a lot of other ones you have to have like intercessors, and you have to have intermediaries, and you had to have people who like, oh, I'll go pray for you. I'll read. Like people couldn't read the Bible.
Yeah.
So they had to have people like how much of that was that time where things could have just been off? Is there was a time where nobody was guessing and checking, nobody was doing checks and balances because no one could read. So like, what if they was really going through that? Like, nope, people are gonna give us money if we don't have that. Like,
right.
And we don't know.
At all.
And that's my thing. Is like, what's so great about Jesus is that you can go to Jesus yourself. And that's not what, that's a little different, a little special about like the religion that we currently have. And I just think it's weird that people are they're so tight-fisted about what it all is. And it's a shame. Like, you shouldn't feel like, oh, I don't know if I should tell anybody I'm Christian, right?
Yeah.
And like it doesn't. It makes you feel like, oh, but I'm not one of those Christians.
I don't want to say that either. I feel white.
I'm
not one of those white people. I believe I don't see color.
Or
like,
you feel like Uncle Tom, where you're like, wait, I'm not one of those niggas. And you're like, wait a second.
I'm not one of those people.
I'm not, but you're not. I'm like, I don't listen. I don't want to sell you my Jesus. I'm not going to be knocking on your door wearing any sort of like odd outfit. Like, it's none of.
Have you heard the word of Jesus Christ?
And I'm like, ugh. Even me. And I love me some Jesus. I love Jesus, but I hate getting them tiny Bibles.
I have one that looks like money. And I'm like, why would you give me this? Make it look like money, and then I open it and it says New Testament. Like, what is this? Like, that's so dumb.
First off,
you're trying to sell people, like, literally giving them.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know.
Money Bibles? That feels so wrong.
Yeah.
There's a part of the Bible that's like, you can't have two masters, and if money is your master, then God isn't. And so
they're like, you can have both.
So like,
this is your money and your Bible. Like,
which is insane. That is unhinged.
I will show it to you.
So that's what bothers me too. It's just a rampant misrepresentation, and it's so aggressive. And it's so pervasive, and it just gets into every facet of your life. Because if you don't believe that God loves you, and you don't feel that you have a sense of identity in God, the amount of things. Let me speak from my perspective. Let me speak from my life. When I did not feel like I was close to God, and that God didn't love me, and I didn't have my identity in God, the things that I let wash me over was nasty. They just weren't good. Like, they weren't good for me. And it always brings me back to that part of the Bible where it's like, I can do anything, but all things aren't good for me. Right? Like, through God, I can do anything, but all things aren't good for me. And like, there were just so many things that I was like, oh, like friendships. Like, when I had a whole bunch of like collapse and issues in my friendships, I felt like my life was just like, because that's where my identity was. Because I just didn't know how I was supposed to love a God who obviously was having such a hard time loving all of me. Which is gross. And I don't like it.
You know what I think it is? Like, God is considered our father, our parents, right? And they try to, and like, our parents are people, so they would think, well, I don't like this part of my child. Like, they love their child, but I don't like this part. I don't like that part.
Kind of conditional.
It's conditional. But God's isn't. But they can't comprehend that because theirs is. And so they'll be like, well, if he's a parent and I'm a parent, this is how I feel about my child. Obviously, that's how he feels about us. And I think that's what it is.
I think that's
like,
a good point.
They're trying to, like, for me, it was like, it's so hypocritical that he's all this and all that, but he has human emotions. Like, how can you say, I can't think of, like, I don't know where, like, my mind was like, they can't be both.
I feel you.
Like, how does he show anger, right? Like obviously he showed anger, but how does he show such anger and hatred for something that he created and then told us to be this way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like specifically for like gay people.
Yeah.
Like how like he created them to like people.
Yeah.
To like whoever they wanted.
Yeah.
And then was like, I hate you for it.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right to me.
That is wild. Especially when you like, and I know that this point still has like a lot of contention to it, but for me, if you can find it in nature, then it's odd to denigrate it to me, right? Like, and there's gay animals, right? And if you look at people are like, oh, well, what do they say? Like, people kind of act like death isn't natural. Like, they'll act like it's not supposed to happen and God's supposed to, like, always save everybody from everything. And it's like, but if you look at nature, things happen. Things die. And, like, natural disasters, there's no rhyme or reason. And things are completely devastated by these things. But, like, that's life. And if life is happening in nature, why would we feel that life is not supposed to happen for us? And I just think God shows us how he works and how he loves and how he moves in nature.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we, like, people took that one part of the Bible where it's like, oh, you should have dominion over the earth as humans. And I don't think that was right. I feel like that translation was probably wrong. I think it's probably like reign or rule, meaning that you should have governance of something, not sovereigns of it. Like, your job is to ensure and protect and to manage and to maintain and to ensure the survival and the thriving of this thing.
Like cutting a tree's limb because it's diseased rather than cutting down the whole tree because
or if you do cut down a whole tree, then you need to plant 2 more. Like, how different would our world look if we had translated it that we're meant to have like divine and loving governance over the world as opposed to dominion and like the manifest destiny bullshit of like the planet.
Right.
And I just think that's wild. Another thing that popped into my mind like a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if I've said it out loud yet, is I feel like we wouldn't be dealing with overpopulation if there wasn't homophobia. Because people are
so many people were gay that got married and had kids because they were told by society that they had to get married and have kids.
How many?
You don't see cows overpopulated. Like, well, probably now.
Unless we didn't see that before. Everything else regulates.
Yes.
And because everything else just lets itself be in accordance to God's divine ideal for it. As opposed to creating its own little like, oh no, this is bad, this is good, we need to make money for this, and we need to govern this way, and da-da-da-da-da. That's not present. That's not present. So I just wonder, like, would our planet, and that goes to like how our oceans are being affected, how much we're feeding people, and like, you know, everyone's
what we're feeding people,
everything, and how many people too. I forgot what I was watching, but it was about gay people back in like old Hollywood and stuff, and how they had to be kind of discreet, and it just made me think, and like people like were killing themselves and all this kinds of stuff. And it made me think how many people were supposed to do more with their life, but they were so like scared to be seen for the thing that was bad that they didn't let themselves be seen for the thing that was good. Like, because you don't have enough energy. You don't have enough energy to do the thing God called you to do to change this world usually, and also hide. Like the guy who invented the first like British computer or whatever, he was Alan Turing, something like that. He was gay. And he got arrested and like put in like mental institute, all kinds of stuff. And how much more work was there for him to do? But we, like, the world was so busy being
like men.
Like, we probably would have the cure for cancer already because the person who was supposed to do that wasn't so busy trying to figure out how to have like consensual, joyful sex without being,
or who even to ask. Like, you know how, like, I can't imagine, like, how hard it was to find someone like you.
Yeah.
That would also, like, not be afraid to show who they were.
Absolutely.
Like, growing up, I didn't think there were as many gay couples or homosexual couples as there are.
Right.
Because first of all, they weren't shown in media. And second of all, people in my school kind of just didn't say anything until they were like, oh, you're gay too?
Right.
We could be together.
That was high school. High school was like everything. Everyone was straight until they weren't. And you're like, wait a minute. Where did all these people come from?
And it's like, I felt if they could say it, I could say it. And then I finally found, first of all, a friend.
Yeah.
And second of all, a potential partner. Because
Right.
there's no one else around here that could be my partner.
Right. And community is so important. God does everything in community. Otherwise, Jesus would have been alone. Jesus didn't need them. Jesus didn't need them.
You need them 12 men.
And like, listen, and 2 of them ruined his life. So the whole time he had community, he knew 2 of them was garbage. And he still was like, come walk on the water. Like, it's so, for me, that's just wild. And then people, like, they'll be like, well, it says in the Bible, homosexuality is wrong. And it's like,
didn't say that.
It didn't say that. Jesus never uttered. Like, he
didn't say that.
He didn't say that. And, like, sexual immorality is the most that you can say. But again, that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. To me, that's like rape and like assault, harassment. A lot of what happens in the Bible too is like Jesus trying to protect people.
Yeah.
Where he's like, if you experience lust, then you need to like cut out your own eye. Because people are doing fucked up things out of their lust to people who are less powerful than them. And you know what I'm saying? But people just hear the don't be lustful. And then you see a woman trying to own her sexuality and you're like, she's a slut. And it's like, wait a minute.
First of all.
like, and it's always, I forgot what I was watching. Oh, it was this thing about like pole dancing. And this lady, she was like, I'm really in the church. But like, I got kicked out because somebody found my porn video. But the guy who found the porn video didn't get kicked out of the church.
Had to look up the porn. How you found it? Just did not come across Facebook.
Jesus didn't email it to you.
How you found it?
Like, and it's just insane to me because I feel like they're just holding on so tightly to these things that just have never truly served anybody lovingly.
Right.
And it's not, we can't act like gay people are not in our churches.
Because they are.
Statistically, that is not even right. Like,
they just won't say it.
Exactly. And that's not how anything is meant to be, Mm-hmm. And I just really hate the fact that this thing that I love so deeply and so I'm associated with, it's just hurting people. And it makes you not want to be part of the gang. And, and it's not even just, I think this is enough for this episode.
Sorry to cut it off.
I looked at the time. But we'll do another one at some point. Maybe in these same outfits.
Maybe a part 2.
Maybe. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Oh, we need to our moral of the story. What's our moral of the story for this video?
Be spiritual and not religious.
I
mean, if you follow your spiritual self, you'll find religion. You'll find where you're supposed to be, in my opinion. So, yeah, do you.
That's not bad. That's solid. Yeah. Let's see. What's my moral of the story? I think my moral of the story is that God is love. Jesus is love. And so if what you're doing, feeling, seeing, thinking, and believing are not loving, may not be him. Bye.